Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. 3 days after Mike proposed to me, he chose to abandon me in a big fire, preferring to save his ex-girlfriend instead. The fire was intense, and the smoke made my head spin. Yet I was unusually clear-headed. I even laughed when he said he'd come back right away to save me. When he proposed, I asked him repeatedly, "Mike, are you sure you want to marry me and spend your life with me?" He roughly put the ring on my finger, looking deeply into my eyes. "Jasmine, I'm sure." He was always so sure. Sure that he'd marry me then and sure he'd rather save her now. Maybe people have rare moments of conscience when they're near death. As I slipped into unconsciousness, the only thought in my mind was if I could go back 15 years, I would definitely not tell my father that there was a boy in my class who was really nice to me but he was poor and pitiful. Then my father wouldn't have been so eager to help him financially and keep him tied to me for so many years. When I was younger, I couldn't understand the look in Mike's eyes. He was always gentle with me, but his eyes were cold, like they had a knife hidden in them, ready to stab my heart at any moment. I was never good at reading people. The doctor said it was because I witnessed my mother's suicide jump when I was young, leaving a huge psychological shadow that caused some mental issues. I didn't understand any of that, but it's true that I didn't like talking to others. My classmates in elementary school stayed away from me, and the teachers said I was a cold, difficult child to get along with. My dad was heartbroken. He took time off from his busy work schedule to spend a lot of time with me, but it didn't help. I was very clingy to him, but only to him. I was indifferent to everyone else. This started to change in middle school when Mike transferred into my class. The first time I saw him, I just thought he was handsome like a flower on a cliff, unreachable. But he became my desk mate, actively talked to me, helped me with my homework and gave me warm smiles. Years later, Mike would often joke about how his biggest regret was smiling at me back then. I was curious if he regretted it when my dad offered financial help, or when Mandy transferred to our school in high school. Before that, our relationship was relatively good. Although Mike resented my dad's strong-arm tactics, he was always gentle with me until our sophomore year when Mandy transferred in. Unlike my cold demeanor, she was like a sunflower. Lively, cheerful, and quickly made friends with everyone, including her desk mate, Mike. At first, Mike was indifferent, but Mandy didn't mind. She'd smile and ask him questions, genuinely praising him. "Mike, you're amazing." After learning the solutions, Mike would turn his head, revealing pink ears, and say, "It's nothing." Sitting next to them, I thought for a moment and put my question back. Because when I asked him questions, he was always impatient. If he could, he would have preferred us to be strangers in the class. The reason his wish came true was one day when Mandy finally asked gossipingly, "Mike, are you really Jasmine's future husband?" It was an old rumor born the day Mike accepted my dad's financial help, and it never stopped. Usually silent, Mike frowned and without hesitation said, "No. And when they say you like Jasmine, is that also not true?" Mike's reply was somewhat urgent. "No, that's impossible. Don't listen to their nonsense." Pretending to be asleep beside them, my body stiffened, my breath halted for a moment, but my heart became strangely calm as if confirming something. The next day, I requested a seat change from the teacher, citing academic reasons, moving next to the class monitor who had better grades. When Mike heard the news, he was momentarily stunned but didn't ask further questions, so I didn't bother explaining. I was not good at reading people, but even I could see that Mike liked Mandy. Since that was the case, there was no need for me to sit near him every day, listening to their increasingly implicit conversations and feeling frustrated. On the night after the college entrance exams, there was a class gathering. Unable to stand the noise, I went to the restroom and saw Mike pinning Mandy against the wall, kissing her passionately. By then, my relationship with Mike had cooled. He had declined my father's offer to support him during college, and in class, he and I were like strangers. But at that moment, I truly realized we had no relationship at all. What I didn't expect was Mike re-entering my life after graduation when he joined my father's company. The reason was simple. His ailing mother required a large sum for surgery. When my dad brought him to see me, I was momentarily speechless but ended up asking, "Where's Mandy?" As far as I knew, they had been together throughout college, deeply in love. Mike, disturbingly calm, replied, "She went abroad." Finally, with that old familiar gaze that once smiled at me, he said, "We broke up long ago." I couldn't explain it, but that moment left a lasting impression in my mind. No matter how tender or affectionate he seemed later on, I always thought of that look. Cold, chilling, as if saying, "Jasmine, is this what you wanted?" I awoke to a stab of his cool look, greeted by the stark white ceiling and the pungent smell of disinfectant. I wasn't dead, I was still alive, and that made me a bit sad. "Jasmine, you're awake." Mike was next to me, his voice hoarse. He seemed quite worn out, with sunken eyes and a chin covered in stubble. When our eyes met, he forced a smile and said, "You slept for 2 or 3 days. Finally, you're awake." I sipped some water from his hand, gaining enough strength to speak. "Where's Mandy?" The water in the cup trembled suddenly. Mike's eyes were complicated.
"Jasmine, I'm sorry."
"It's all my fault." I shook my head and only then felt the bandage around my head. It seemed like nothing serious had happened to her. I smiled. "Otherwise, you wouldn't be here watching over me." "Jasmine, don't say things like that." He reached out to hold my hand, but it was too cold and I pulled away. He froze for a moment, then seemed to make up his mind. "Jasmine, we are still getting married." "Really?" I looked down at the wrinkled bedsheet and heard my own calm voice. "But what can we do, Mike? I don't want to marry you anymore." I rarely expressed my emotions so directly, but at this moment I spoke my mind clearly, looking directly at Mike's ashen face. "I can't bear the thought of spending my life with you." It was like a flower on a cliff that finally couldn't withstand the wind and rain and fell. Mike practically fled, leaving only one sentence. "I'll come back to see you in a few days." After he left, my dad's secretary came in and briefly explained what had happened. The fire was due to an aging electrical circuit. Mike saved Mandy first, and I was rescued by a firefighter. He even covered me when a light fixture fell and hurt his back. He's in the hospital too. I asked for the firefighter's room number and found an opportunity to go over there. But I saw there were a bunch of people in his room, probably his colleagues, teasing him. It was lively. He was sitting up in bed, wrapped in bandages, laughing heartily. I remembered his face. During the fire, it was this face that told me not to be afraid. But now he looked so young. The room was crowded, and my social anxiety kicked in. I hesitated at the door for a while before deciding to come back another time. Just as I was about to leave, the door opened and a few guys stared at me. "Who are you looking for?" Then it seemed to dawn on them. "You're the girl Leo saved, right? Here to see Leo? Come on in." I felt completely stiff, wishing I were a piece of wood. But the guy inside came over first, shooing the others away. "Go back to the team. You're scaring her." They left laughing while he stood there in a coat, half his chest exposed, scratching his head awkwardly. Are you all right?" I touched the bandage on my head, feeling a bit dazed. "I'm fine." A passing nurse kindly reminded. "Patients shouldn't be wandering around. Even if you're dating, take care of your health." Walking away, she mumbled. One with a head injury, one with an abdomen injury, standing at the door talking about dating. Ridiculous. The guy standing across from me turned red from his face to his collarbones. The firefighter who saved me was named Leo. Only 22, 3 years younger than me. He looked quite young too, though his face was tanned, and his exposed skin suggested he was naturally fair. I recalled his mature tone calming me during the fire, but now, seeing his dimples as he smiled, it felt incongruent. When I told him I wanted to thank him for saving me, he got serious. "No need, it's my job." I rubbed my phone, thinking he probably didn't know this hospital had a partnership with my dad's company. So my dad had already taken care of his treatment. When I stayed silent, his voice softened. "Did I scare you? I'm sorry. My captain always says I'm too serious and might scare people. Because I hate owing favors, he seemed even clumsier than me, which was amusing. I waved my phone at him. "Can we be friends?" His face turned red again. "Sure. Where's my phone?" We exchanged contacts clumsily, and I'd exhausted my social energy. I waved. "Let's have a meal together sometime." Without waiting for his response, I rushed out, not hearing his excitement or the pained yelp after he hurt his back rolling on the bed. I went back to my room, packed up, and discharged myself without telling anyone but my dad. As for Mike, who said he'd visit in a few days, I suggested he check out the neurology department instead. I wasn't seriously injured, just a scratched forehead. My dad had frantically arranged for a bunch of specialists who only concluded I was sleeping. My psychologist, Lewis, said my 2 or 3 days of sleep were due to psychological reasons, avoiding reality. He's been saying that for years, so I'm used to it. The first thing I did at home was tell my dad I wanted to break off the engagement. He wasn't too surprised but still rubbed my head tenderly. All right, if you don't want to, then don't. Dad can take care of you forever. I knew he'd worried a lot about me and clung to his arm, eyes stinging.
I'm sorry, Dad.
What's there to be sorry for? That boy's the one who wronged you. I only thought you liked him so much before, and you two seem to get along well these past 2 years. I was worried you'd be sad. Thinking about it, I didn't feel too bad. Mike and I reconnected and spent 2 years together. He became much more attentive and caring while I grew colder, so after we got together, he always seemed anxious. I remember that day, it was the first snow. He wrapped a scarf around me under the street lamp, his eyes gentle. Jasmine, should we give it a try? I really wanted to ask him, why just try? Why do you want to try with me? Are you still hung up on Mandy? But I never brought up Mandy again. After we reunited, her name became taboo. After that first day, she was never mentioned again. I recalled that night. I didn't say anything, just nodded slightly and thought to myself, let's give it another shot. Back then, I just wanted to find someone to settle down with. He was someone my dad trusted, so I went with it. And then Mike willingly let me go. He gave up on this chance. It didn't hurt as much as the night I finished my college entrance exams. Richard once told me, when I get ruthless, no one can match me. When will you learn to be ruthless to others and kind to yourself? His words of disappointment still echo in my ears. I blinked and shut the window. Outside downstairs, Mike stood there staring at me like a statue. How many cigarettes has he smoked?
No idea.
These past few nights, that red glow at his fingertips never went out, just like his lingering presence. Since I got out of the hospital, he's called countless times and sent countless texts. After I blocked him, he showed up at my house like a sticky gum you can't get rid of. But before, he was always the most carefree. Early on, I learned from my dad that once he started college, he kept sending money to my family, probably to repay the support we gave him. Even after he started working for my dad, he would set aside part of his salary to pay him back with interest. He's almost done repaying. Cutting ties, he's really good at it. Too bad this time I beat him to it. My phone screen lights up with messages one after another. I thought it's another of Mike's new numbers. About to block it, I saw Richard's name. Miss me? Scrolling up, it's his usual rambling. In short, he's back in the country, bored, heard I'm single again, and plans to bother me tomorrow. My temple throbbed. I replied with a question mark. He quickly sent a voice message, very melodramatic. Jasmine, my family is setting me up on more dates, you understand? Then another one. At least we were once potential marriage partners. You won't leave me hanging, right? My head ached and I blocked him. The result of blocking him? The next day, he showed up directly at my door, casually draped an arm over Mike's shoulder, teasingly said, "You must be the idiot who gave up on Jasmine." I was about to go for a walk. Unfortunately, I witnessed Mike's entire face darken and got a wink from Richard. Then, after a few days of no contact, Leo suddenly messaged me. He said he's free today, could grab a meal. What's with today? Then I remembered my dad mentioned Leo got out of the hospital. I had asked when he'd be free. Looking at these two hapless guys, I quickly arranged a time and place with Leo. Turning to Richard, I said, "I've got plans today, maybe next time." He looked understanding, forcefully holding on to Mike, who tried to get close to me, smiling slyly. Since Jasmine is busy, Mike can chat with me, right? After all. He paused, his eyes glancing at me teasingly. I was Jasmine's ex-fiancé. We have some common ground. Mike visibly wavered, stopped struggling. He didn't know about Richard, probably shocked. I left this mess to Richard and went to meet Leo. Midway, I got a message from Richard. Handled for you. During the meal, I received another message from Mike. Jasmine, I just asked for one last meeting, please. Where did he get a new number from? I felt annoyed, deleted, blocked, and focused on listening to Leo's story. Leo wore casual clothes, looking fresh and handsome. His smile was a bit silly, and he talked with gestures. That cat ended up on the 15th floor air conditioner unit, scared half to death. When we tried to catch it, it didn't move. Once inside, it scratched us. He showed the faint scars on his arm, amused. The little guy's pretty strong. I had to get 4 rabies shots. I laughed, but he suddenly stopped, staring at me, blushing. Has anyone told you your smile is beautiful? His straightforwardness stunned me.
Sorry.
His face reddened, scratching his head, embarrassed. I'm not good at talking. No problem. I found him so adorably clueless I couldn't stop smiling. Thanks for the compliment. We were both socially awkward, but Leo was naturally a bit naive, so he filled the silence when I had nothing to say, making it less awkward. Having been honed by Richard during college, I had basic social skills. I remember him earnestly saying, "In society, sometimes you need to put on a facade." So I invited Leo for a meal to express my gratitude. However, looking at Leo talking excitedly across from me, I felt that with him, even pretending wasn't necessary to feel at ease. The meal took little time, we talked a lot. By the end, Leo was still telling me how they saved a kid with his head stuck in a fence. I hadn't laughed that hard in a long while. He stood in front of me, tentatively asking, "Miss Jasmine, can I ask you out again?" The affection in his eyes was clear, making my tired heart skip a beat. I instinctively replied, "Sure, and we're friends. No need to call me Miss Jasmine." He seemed taken aback, then stuttered, "All right, Jasmine. Next time then," I said, thinking of a new nickname, saluting with a smile. He flashed a white smile, returning the salute. As Leo disappeared, Mike's car stopped in front of me. So much for Richard saying he handled it. Liar. Mike's face was pale, and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked haggard, nothing like the cool teenager I remembered. Even his voice was hoarse from smoking too much. "Jasmine, who was that person you just had dinner with? Were you stalking me?" I felt a bit sick. He didn't deny it, just gave a bitter smile. "Jasmine, we've known each other for so long. Can't you give me a chance to talk?" The cars behind us were already honking. Feeling a bit wary, I sent a quick message to Richard to let him know what was happening, then got into the back seat of Mike's car. Mike glanced at me through the rearview mirror but said nothing. He drove to a countryside manor surrounded by a sea of flowers. "You always said you wanted to come here, but I was too busy with work to bring you." Mike leaned against the car, huskily staring at the vast sunset. "So this is compensation?" I stood a meter away, indifferent to the beautiful scene in front of me. I even had time to send my location to Richard. "I want to make it up, but would you accept it?" He pulled out a cigarette, glanced at my expression, and decided just to hold it between his fingers. "When we were together, I often wondered, did you really love me?" I met his gaze but didn't want to speak. He didn't seem to expect an answer. "The guy you had dinner with, a firefighter, right? He seems decent, but I don't think your dad will approve." Leo's feelings for me were so obvious that anyone could see them, but hearing Mike mention it made me feel disgusted. "That's none of your business anymore," I said coldly. "Our engagement is off. What about Richard? What's your relationship with him?" His deep voice trembled as he twisted the cigarette in his hand, as if my answer could decide my fate. I never imagined Mike could be jealous and suspicious. "Are you accusing or questioning me?" I said, eyes widening. "I didn't bring up your mess with Mandy, yet you dare to ask about my past?" Mike closed his eyes in pain, looking uneasy. "No, Jasmine, that's not what I meant." He swallowed hard. "I'm just jealous." The last 2 words were so quiet, and after saying them, he laughed bitterly, like a condemned man finding twisted relief. "He knows so much about you, things even your boyfriend for over a year, don't. And that firefighter, since you reunited, have you ever smiled at me like you do at him?" Night fell, and the returning birds screeched across the sky, their calls merging with his question. "Jasmine, did you ever love me? I think you did. You used to be so good to me, saying good morning every day, smiling gently, and sneaking snacks into my desk. Even when I ignored you, you were never angry." Lost in his memories, he wore a nostalgic smile, unaware that the past he cherished was my worst nightmare. I couldn't have been angry, but he never noticed my small frustrations. Back then, he cared most about Mandy and his fragile pride. Everyone thought I was using my family's wealth to morally blackmail Mike, standing in the way of his love for Mandy. They thought I was a villain. People saw me as lonely, unlike the outgoing Mandy. But to be honest, I don't even want to remember these things. Like Richard once said, relationships that don't matter don't need maintaining. This conversation was pointless if Mike kept indulging in the past, so I cut him off coldly. It's all in the past. Talking about it doesn't help. How could it not? He was wide-eyed, not ready to let go. I sighed and gave him the truth. Do you know why Mandy was with me that day? She heard about your engagement and flew back from abroad to find me. She told me your family didn't approve of your relationship, but you promised her one day you'd have the money to marry her. How could you get money? By marrying a rich woman, then ditching her when you had the chance. Thinking of Mandy's innocent face that day, she almost convinced me. Jasmine, I didn't want to see you get hurt, so I came to tell you the truth. But Mike did it for me. He didn't want to hurt you. Can you forgive him for the sake of our school days? I just found it strange. Do you even know me, Mandy? She looked stunned. If I remember right, we never got along since high school. Was it close enough for you to call me Jasmine? A question I'd kept in for years finally spoken. Mandy smiled awkwardly. Sorry, Jasmine Habit. I didn't want a pointless girl fight and planned to brush it off, but she had more schemes up her sleeve. She drugged my water. In my days I heard her say, Jasmine, who do you think he'll choose, you or me? A meaningless question getting a meaningless answer. Meeting Leo for dinner was to thank him for saving me, but also because I asked him to investigate the fire. The fire was due to old wiring, but a thorough check could reveal signs of tampering. Leo hesitated, saying they might open a case. I told him to follow the law. I planned to tell Mike once I had the results, but I didn't expect him to be so persistent. The sun had already set completely, and the endless darkness spread, making it hard to breathe. Jasmine, I'm with you, definitely not for the money, I know. Knowing him for so long, I knew his limits to some extent. He wouldn't do something like that. But when you first suggested we give it a shot, wasn't that because of money? Just like years ago, the reason we crossed paths was also because of money. Back then, I agreed for a different reason, yearning for something out of reach like the moon in the sky. But eventually, I realized that the moon reflected in water is different from the moon in the sky. Everything turned out to be different. Not even hatred remained. I was just weary of everything related to him after that big fire. My conversation with Mike ended with Richard's arrival. After I got in the car, he mischievously flashed the headlights at Mike twice, then sighed at me. Coming all this way to pick you up, that'll cost you. I chuckled, looking out the window, and couldn't help but recall the first time I met Richard. Back then, I was reporting to college and he was the one who picked me up. It was a hot summer day. He was wearing the standard senior uniform of our school, lazily leaning against a tree, holding a sign with my name on it. At that time, I didn't choose to go to the same college as Mike. Instead, I enrolled in a university far from home. My dad was worried, so he said that a friend's son happened to be studying there as well, and asked him to pick me up. Speaking of which, you played with him when you were little. Our families even joked about pairing you two up. But after they moved away, no one mentioned it again. I think that was probably before my mom passed away. I forgot many things, naturally forgetting him too. That childhood playmate now had a charming face and was swaggering with a name tag, making me uneasy. I turned a corner to avoid him, but as if he sensed it, he suddenly glanced at me and lazily walked over, blocking a bit of sunlight. Jasmine, right? That was the only time he called me properly. Afterward, his ways of addressing me were all over the place, enough to annoy me. I didn't want too much interaction with him, but he used his dad's request to take care of me as an excuse to constantly bother me. I was most afraid of people who acted overly familiar like Mandy back then, being equally nice to everyone. But later I found out Richard was only like that with me, or I should say only with a few close people. To most people, he was the aloof and handsome senior who spoke little. You used to say you wanted to marry me. By rounding up, you're practically my fiancé now, so of course it's different. He handed me a milk tea with a smile, saying boldly, I had no choice but to accept it. He gave and I took. He nagged and I listened. That was our original relationship, and it was quite harmonious until my sophomore year. During that period, a roommate was deeply involved in campus loans. After borrowing from everyone around and couldn't cover it, she turned to me. We weren't particularly close, especially after I overheard her calling me pretentious. When she said, who knows what kind of person I was in private? Whatever friendship we had disappeared entirely. So I directly refused, saying I had no money. She tried persuading me with kindness, but it was useless, and she finally got mad. You wear and use all brand names, yet you say you have no money? You won't even lend me a few thousand? Who are you pretending for, being all high and mighty? So selfish, no wonder you have no friends. Only that senior is willing to humor you. I bet he doesn't know what other girls say about you behind your back. More unpleasant words followed, but I ignored her. Eventually, my other 2 roommates couldn't stand it and persuaded her to stop. A week later, she couldn't repay her debt and jumped from the highest teaching building at our school. I didn't see the scene, but hearing others talk about it, I couldn't help but recall my mom on the rooftop, teary-eyed. Jasmine, Mom can't go on. I was too young then, not able to understand her or hold her hand, leaving it as a nightmare for the decades that followed. Someone once saved me, but thereafter their help became forced and connected to money, filled with resentment. So I let go first, returning to my world. The roommate's death made the nightmares more frequent and vivid, causing my insomnia to worsen enough that I had to get medication from the school clinic. Richard thus learned everything about my past, knowing what I went through after he moved away. He threw the milk tea into the trash, grabbed my wrist, and pulled me to a bench by the artificial lake, saying he would show me the stars. The moon was bright, stars were few, but mosquitoes were plenty. I got bitten and lost my temper. Richard, feeling rare guilt, put his long-sleeved jacket on me and ruffled my hair when I wasn't looking. If you can't drink milk tea, why didn't you tell me? Good thing I didn't buy it often. I always had sleep issues and couldn't tolerate caffeine. So milk tea and coffee always caused insomnia. I tilted my head to avoid his hand. You said it was not often, so I didn't bother mentioning it. In the moonlight, his expression became serious. It concerns your health, not bothering, huh? You're an adult. You should know to take care of yourself. His tone wasn't harsh, but I suddenly felt extremely emotional, wanting to cry. Yet despite the stinging eyes and nose, no tears fell. I kept my head down, avoiding his gaze, and softly said, "It's not necessary." In the end, I've always had a bit of self-loathing, so I subconsciously wanted to trash my own body. Richard looked at me for a long time and sighed. Don't think you're unimportant, okay? If you don't consider yourself, at least think about the people around you. Your dad wouldn't want to see you like this. What about you? I thought of all the rumors about him chasing me, saying he was my lapdog, that I was stringing him along, and once again blamed myself. Why do you treat me so well? I don't believe it's just because of your dad's request. His eyes flickered and he smiled. Do you believe in love? I opened my mouth but didn't know what to say. He laughed first. Don't worry, I'm not confessing. I'm just giving a reasonable explanation for my actions. I was a bit confused. You love me? He answered with a question. What do you think love is? I wrinkled my nose. Don't ask me such philosophical questions. He chuckled lightly. Then I'll give you my answer. I think true love is pure, which means it doesn't exist. At least not for me. You once accidentally told me that there are no baseless acts of kindness in this world. I think you were right. Except for family love, most gestures of goodwill come with a purpose. I'm no exception with you. My dad has always wanted to further cooperate with your dad's company. And given our family situations, a marriage alliance is the best choice. That's why I take such good care of you. He said his true intentions so openly, without any pretense, and even winked at me afterward. Besides, Jasmine, you're so pretty. I wouldn't lose out anyway. I roughly understood his meaning. In his circle, most people are just putting on acts. Marriages and relationships are tied to interests. Because of my mom's lessons, my dad has protected me well, and kept me away from interacting with anyone in that circle. So at first, I never considered this factor. But this purposeful and selfish interaction actually put me at ease. I could be sure that as long as our family's business didn't drastically change, he'd always treat me well. Pure feelings might look stable but are actually dangerous. Just like Mike, who could easily take back his tenderness towards me whenever he wanted. Richard, knowing about my past with Mike, patted my head and said, "Don't worry, he'll regret it." Back then I thought he was just comforting me. Maybe he really was. Neither of us expected the situation to turn out like this. He has regretted it. Richard glanced at the rearview mirror. Mike's car was closely following us. Probably, I said casually, glancing back. But you said you handled it. Why is it still like this? The car sped up and Richard's tone was relaxed. I tried, just didn't expect him to be this shameless. Knowing the huge harm he caused you, he still has the nerve to try to win you back. I feel ashamed in comparison. I was too tired to expose his little thoughts. I just softly said, anyway, it doesn't matter anymore. Cutting ties was far harder than I imagined. The night after parting with Mike, I didn't sleep at all. Memories flooded my mind. Mike's vulnerable question at dusk whether I loved him or not. Mike telling me amidst roaring fire, conflicted that he'd come back for me. Those scenes overlapped, becoming blurry and broken, leaving only a young Mike looking at Mandy with soft, passionate eyes, not noticing me in the corner. I was ignored. I was abandoned. Just like years ago when Mom stood on the rooftop, filled with reluctance and teary eyes, but still chose to leave me behind. I started suffering from insomnia again, avoiding people and not wanting to eat. I locked myself in my room. My dad was heartbroken, knocking powerlessly on the door from outside. "Jasmine, come out and see your dad, okay?" He said the police informed him Mandy's premeditated arson case was being filed. He said Richard visited him several times wanting to see me. He said Mike quit his job and if I wanted, he could make it impossible for Mike to stay in this circle. Finally, even he compromised. "If you really can't let him go, I won't stop you from getting back together, okay?" I opened the door. After 3 days of silence, my voice was hoarse. "No, I don't want him anymore." So I saw my therapist again. After looking at my scale results, he frowned and first prescribed a bunch of medication, then asked me to lie down on a nearby couch and sleep for a while. "I can't sleep." His tone was gentle. "I know, that's why you need sleep right now. We failed before ultimately because your psychological defense is very high. Now I'm just suggesting, would you like to try again?" Eventually I fell asleep. He asked me, "What did you see?" I saw myself in a dark room. Mom was holding me on the bed, gripping me tightly. I couldn't break free. "Why did you want to leave?" "Because it was too dark." I couldn't see anything, hear anything. Only Mom's whimpers piercing my eardrums. But I didn't like hearing her cry. Her limbs, her tears, her whimpers all entangled me like thorny vines. Really, nothing you could see? Actually, there was. I tried to open my eyes wide, looking around. I barely saw a small light in the distance. It was a window. Outside it was bright. 15, 16-year-old Mike stood in the sunlight, waving at me. No light could come through. I was still steeped in darkness. And just when I wanted to put my hand on the window glass, Mom held me from behind. "Jasmine, Mom can't go on living." The window disappeared. It was quite an unpleasant dream. After waking up, Dr. Lewis just patted my head. "You've made great progress already, don't worry too much. Make sure to take your meds on time and come back for a checkup in a week." Before I left, I finally asked the question that had been on my mind for years. "Dr. Lewis, did my mom get sick back then?" Dr. Lewis patiently replied, "Jasmine, based on what you've told me before, it's very likely that your mom was sick. Depression, maybe even a bit of mania. That's why she would occasionally hit me, punish me by not letting me eat, and lock me in a dark room. But she hurt herself the most with the scars on her arms and her pale, haggard face. Sometimes I'd catch her cutting her arms with a knife and wonder who was to blame. Was it my fault? So Mom punished me and herself like that." Dr. Lewis kept telling me that it wasn't my fault. "Don't take on other people's mistakes as your own, Jasmine. Your mom didn't choose to be that way. She just didn't get treatment in time, which led to those results." I had one dream after another. In one, I broke free from my mom's embrace and opened a window. Mike stood in the sunlight, reaching out to me. But when I got close, he pushed me away with a disgusted look. "His leaving wasn't your fault either, Jasmine. Do you think he really hates you?" Dr. Lewis asked. Suddenly, Mike was in his 20s, looking forlorn. "Jasmine, do you still love me?" I didn't know for sure. I just thought it was possible. "It's okay," Dr. Lewis said. "Feelings are complicated. Don't doubt yourself because of them." "But I don't want to see him again," I said. "Why not?" "Because he makes me really sad." "Then we won't see him. Let's meet people who like you and make you happy." "Okay." Mike slowly disappeared. I saw my dad. He was holding my mom's urn, crying heartbreakingly. He said he regretted being so busy with work, neglecting Mom and me. Then he gave me the best material conditions and spent a lot of time with me. Did that make you happy?
No.
Did it make you sad? Not really. I just kinda hated him. Hated him for coming back too late. Maybe Mom wouldn't have jumped off the rooftop if he'd come sooner. But I also love him. After all, he's my dad. Think again. Is there anyone else? I blinked hard and saw Richard lazily standing under a tree behind my dad, wearing a careless smile. Light and shadow danced on him. It took me nearly half a year to get to this point to see Richard, and then I couldn't move forward anymore. Don't worry, Dr. Lewis comforted, patting my hand. Saying goodbye to the past is hard. You've done well. The hypnosis sessions stopped. Dr. Lewis suggested I go for a walk, change my environment, and remember to take my meds. So I planned a trip abroad. My dad wanted to come with me, but I refused. He hired a few bodyguards to protect me instead. No one knew about my trip except my dad. It wasn't until I was watching the northern lights in the Arctic that Richard found out and called me. So you went off having fun without me? We hadn't seen each other much since my illness because he was busy with the company and I was busy with getting better. But he appeared in my dreams with light and shadow on him. The northern lights were stunning. I breathed in the cold air and teased him. Richard, do you really need someone to take you out for fun? That's different, he laughed. I used to have all the time in the world. Now I'm sneaking breaks. I just laughed. Then he asked, where are you now? Watching the northern lights. I've never seen them, he said, pretending to be pitiful. Send me a photo, will you? So I sent him pictures from each spot just like I did for my dad. The blue lagoon surrounded by volcanic rock, the gateway to the island under the sunset, and the blue ice cave that looked dreamlike as the light changed. Sometimes I felt like I was melting into the world. You belong in this world, Richard said. I laughed. Where did you get that line to cheer me up? Gotcha, he chuckled. From a book called 99 Love Quotes for Your Girlfriend. You're the CEO and you're slacking off at work? He laughed lazily. I'm the boss. Who can stop me? True, no one can manage you. Not really, he dragged out the words. My wife can. I was standing in front of Svartafoss waterfall, breathing in the fresh, moist air when I heard that. I went silent for a moment, my eyes stinging. Richard, he gently replied, pretending to be dramatic. Another line from the book. Got you all emotional, huh? The waterfall created a rainbow in the air. It felt like I was talking to myself. I think I'm coming back to life. After a long pause, Richard's voice was still light. Looks like the view's amazing. You better take me next time. Sure thing. After months of wandering, I finally came home before the new year. Dad looked at me for a while, his eyes red. You've lost so much weight and you got tanned. But it's good to have you back, just good to have you back. And Richard's first words when he saw me were, not bad, you came back alive. I gave him a punch. After the new year, I started to learn to manage the company with my dad. Due to the meds, my memory and reaction time weren't what they used to be. Learning was tough, but I felt fulfilled like never before. The nightmare of Mom and Mike rarely visited me anymore. I couldn't completely escape the darkness nor embrace pure light. So I stood at the edge of both, facing Richard. He fully supported my decision to join the company and helped me a lot. When I offered to thank him, he just laughed. Jasmine, just give yourself to me. I bit my lip. But He gently interrupted. It's okay. Businessmen need patience. When he said that, his lips curled into a mischievous smile, his eyes like a cunning fox. Patience is definitely a big deal. Especially when you're dealing with all kinds of people. After a party, Richard always seemed just fine while I felt completely drained. I couldn't help wondering, how come you're never tired? He didn't joke like he usually did. I've been tagging along with my dad to these places since high school, he said. Over time you just get used to it. I found a seat in the corner and Richard sat down next to me, casually picking up my sore leg and giving it a massage. In high school, my dad was considerate about my studies, so it was only once every month or two, he continued. But by college, he took me to every event. Didn't you used to joke about how I'd disappear all the time? When I wasn't at school, I was here socializing and networking. Born into this circle, there's no escaping. The resources you enjoy from birth come with responsibilities. So in college, I was pretty envious of you not having to inherit a family business. The mood got a bit heavy, so he changed the topic lightly. Well, now you're in this mess too, so I'm not suffering alone. Richard seemed a bit lonely that night. I felt the urge to pat his head, and I did. When I touched his soft hair, we both froze, locking eyes. I awkwardly cleared my throat first. He chuckled, patted my head back, and said, "Let's get you home." As we stepped out, I saw Mike leaning against the wall, looking pretty drunk. I heard he resigned and started his own business, leveraging connections he made at my dad's company. He seemed to be doing well, but in the early stages, there's always a lot of socializing to do, whining and dining to secure investments. I couldn't picture it, and seeing it now, I felt a bit melancholic. His back wasn't as straight as before, and his once sharp eyes looked tired. "Want to go say hi?" Richard softly asked from behind, draping my coat over my shoulders. A girl rushed out of a nearby room, jacket in hand, and hurried to help Mike. "Mike?" I shook my head. "Let's go." As we passed by, I heard a faint Jasmine, but I kept walking. I saw Leo again in the spring. I had some rare free time and visited an art exhibit. When it ended, I ran into Leo waiting outside the restroom. He looked more mature, wearing a matching hoodie and jeans, holding a cup of bubble tea. "Miss Jasmine?" He recognized me first, a bit surprised. "Hello, Leo." After that dinner, he had contacted me a few times, but I was sick and didn't respond. After that, we lost touch. A girl came out of the restroom, linking her arm with Leo's, looking curiously at me. She was wearing a matching hoodie, the same as Leo's. Leo handed her the bubble tea and hesitantly introduced me. "This is Miss Jasmine, an old friend." The girl's eyes showed a hint of vigilance as she greeted me, then whined to Leo about wanting takoyaki from a nearby shop. The shop was popular and had long lines. Leo told her to wait at some seats near the exhibit entrance while he ran off to get the food. Watching him leave, I smiled at the girl. "Got something you want to say to me?" She seemed startled by my directness, blushing a bit. "Are you Jasmine?" I chuckled. "Has Leo mentioned me?" She nodded, a bit uneasy. "Yes, a few times. Sorry, I might be overreacting." "Don't worry, I've only met your boyfriend twice. He saved me from a fire." I thanked him with a meal, and that was that. It was over a year ago. She sighed in relief but bit her lip. "Sorry, I was just worried." Leo was quite down for a while. Shaking my head, I interrupted. "It's okay. It's a normal reaction. Don't blame yourself. Took me years to learn that." We chatted until Leo returned. She talked about how Leo had saved her from committing suicide. He spent an hour on the rooftop talking her out of it. "Jasmine, why did you stop talking to Leo?" She got comfortable and curious. I just smiled. I had some personal issues. Seeing Leo returning, I stood up. "Your boyfriend's back. I'll take off now." It was just a fleeting crush, probably heightened by the intense situation. Our worlds don't match now. In my office, thinking about that fire, it felt like ages ago. But lately, Mike's been appearing more often, always keeping his distance. Like Lewis said, saying goodbye to the past isn't easy. I still cry without reason, zone out on the company rooftop, or feel detached from reality due to the meds. Richard was the first to find me on the rooftop. His worried voice calling my name snapped me back. Seeing my tears, all his frustration melted into a sigh. "If you really don't want to see him, let me help you, okay?" I shook my head. "It's fine. I'm already getting better bit by bit. I've forgotten a lot of things, especially memories with Mike. Every accidental encounter with him makes those memories fade a little more. Sometimes when I suddenly make eye contact with him, I wonder why I was so devoted back then. Other times when I look at him, I seem to see my mom standing behind him, smiling gently at me. I cry less frequently. I have fewer nightmares. Although Mike brings back some unpleasantness, I know I'm gradually recovering. But Richard is still worried. He uses the excuse that our companies are close by to pick me up every day. I can't refuse, so I agree. One rainy day, a year and a half later, Richard said he'd be late picking me up, so I waited at the office entrance. Mike walked up at that time and offered me an umbrella. I didn't feel anything, took a step back and said no thanks. Mike's Adam's apple moved. "You still blame me, don't you?" Richard's car arrived just then, honking the horn. I waved at him and quickly told Mike, "Someone's here to pick me up." That night, Richard drove fast. I couldn't help but pat him. "Do you want to get fined by the cops?" He didn't speak, just slowly decelerated. I sensed his mood wasn't good. It couldn't just be because of Mike's umbrella. There must be more to it. What's wrong? After a while he spoke. Just business stuff. Mike's company is growing fast and there are competitors. Lately they've been targeting us. Just some small moves. I won't suffer a loss. He paused and glanced at me. But I'm still pissed. I sighed. I have nothing to do with him anymore. He rarely pressed so hard. Does it still make you sad to see him? No, I smiled, feeling at ease. I've forgotten many things and don't plan to remember. During a red light he reached over, pinched my cheek and smiled. You gotta forget what you need to forget. After that day, Mike started sending flowers to my office. They were flowers I mentioned liking before. Sometimes there were also little trinkets I once talked about. But they didn't affect me anymore. I told the receptionist to throw them out. Richard saw them once and asked, "You don't like any of these?" Not really. I used to say I liked them to seem cute. I wanted to appear less isolated and different, to be more like Mandy. Friendly and outgoing. In all my later relationships, I felt compelled to do what couples are supposed to do, as if that would fix my regrets from when I was younger. But in the end, if you don't like something, you just don't, no matter how many years pass. Richard laughed. So what do you like? Your birthday's coming up. I need to prepare. I stared at him for a while and laughed. How about you give yourself to me? Richard was momentarily stunned. What did you say? I found him amusing at that moment and intentionally said, nothing. He recovered quickly and persistently teased. I heard you, Jasmine. Don't go back on your word. I just laughed and told him to stop bothering me at work. Then I recorded that part and sent it to a number that had been harassing me for days. Richard helped me have an unforgettable 29th birthday. He really jumped out of a huge box shouting, "Happy birthday, Jasmine." Making the moment awkward even when it was just the two of us, I laughed and felt exasperated, covering my face. Richard, let's just stay strangers. He grabbed my hand and laughed. No way. I still need to give myself to you. I know what you mean, he interrupted, rubbing my head. I don't mind if you use me. In fact, I hope you use me more. Giving myself to you is also somewhat selfish. Selfish? Because of my family's wealth or something else? I looked into his eyes and suddenly didn't want to ask. If it were about a marriage alliance, he had many other options. No need to focus solely on me. But Richard, I may never be able to love anyone again. Emotions seemed to shut off with that big fire, making it hard to feel that heart-pounding, world-fading love. Lewis said the medication had side effects, lowering my emotional sensitivity. I wouldn't feel extreme sadness or joy, and I'd need to take this medication for another 3 to 4 years. Richard hugged me gently. It's okay. I love you and that's enough. Richard is the biggest liar. He said he didn't believe in pure love, yet now he claims to love me. After a long time, I hugged him back. Richard, the only thing I'm sure of is I don't dislike you and probably quite like you. Reliance becomes a habit. He accompanied me through many tough times, shining in the river of memories. He smiled proudly. That's my honor. Under his triumphant gaze, I put on the ring. The night our engagement was announced, a strange number called. Somehow, I instinctively felt it was Mike. The screen lit up, then went dark, then lit up again a few seconds later. It became the only light in the darkness. After a while, I answered. His hoarse voice came through. Jasmine. I couldn't quite describe this call. Wistful, nostalgic, guilty? It made me remember when I first met him. He was a cool boy with a warm smile and gentle eyes in the sunlight. Don't hang up yet, he pleaded. Let me talk to you, just talk. He must be having a headache due to drinking, an old problem of his. I softly responded. On the other end of the phone there was a long sigh and a past I didn't know. Before he met me, Mike's family only had one source of income. His mother. Even though she was sick, she had to work several jobs a day to support his education. When he got to middle school, he wanted to secretly work part-time but was eventually rejected because he was too young. Then he met me and my father. My dad weighed the pros and cons with him. If he worked part-time to make money, it would take up a lot of his time, causing him to fall behind in his studies. But if he accepted my dad's help, he just needed to take care of me at school and nothing else would be a concern. You're too young to see the big picture. How much can you make with a part-time job? Studying is your only way out. That made sense, but Mike always felt like he was selling himself. These titles crushed his pride into the dirt. He was powerless and could only vent his anger on me. I never hated you. In the end, I hated my own incompetence. Even though he worked himself to death with part-time jobs during college, he still couldn't cover the cost of a surgery. When he saw me again, he had resigned himself to his fate. Some people are born at the finish line. No matter how hard I try, I can never reach it. Jasmine, I really did fall in love with you over those 2 years. He seemed to be crying, his voice choked. I miss you so much. If I'd chosen to save you back then, would things be different now? Jasmine, I found the ring I gave you in the trash. It was late, so I finally spoke. Mike, go have some honey water and then sleep. He still didn't hang up and softly asked, Are you really going to marry him? I answered, then hung up. I didn't expect that the next day Mike would go and fight with Richard. By the time I got there, security had separated the two. Without thinking, I rushed straight to Richard's side, relieved to see he'd only been punched in the lip. But I couldn't hold back my anger and yelled at Mike. Mike, are you out of your mind? Actually, Mike was worse off with a bruised face and tattered clothes. When I yelled at him like that, he looked like he died on the inside. Feeling I'd gone too far, I paused, then heard Richard sharply inhaling. I noticed his right hand was scraped up, bleeding badly, and it looked scary. The sight of red blood freaked me out, making me nervous. We're going to the hospital. Richard leaned on me soothingly, saying, It's okay, I still have work. I rolled my eyes at him. The company will crumble without you for a day? He chuckled lowly, surrendering under my angry glare. Let's go to my office. I've got a first aid kit. I had security take Mike away, and then went with Richard to his office. While treating his wounds, I was so nervous that I was a bit heavy-handed. I immediately apologized, but he just rubbed my head with his left hand. Why are you so tense? I'm not dying. He didn't know how terrified I was of blood, especially from hands and arms. It reminded me of my childhood nightmares. When I stayed silent for a long time, Richard realized something was wrong. He came closer. Jasmine, it's really all right. If you're still worried, we can go to the hospital for a full checkup. My voice was shaking. Why did you fight? It's not uncommon for males to fight over a mate. Don't cry. His reminder made me realize I was crying. I wiped away my tears and glared at him. No more fighting. No more fighting, no more getting hurt, and no more bleeding like this. He was already scared and came closer, pressing his forehead to mine. Okay, my bad. I made you worry. Just engaged, and he was already this clingy. It annoyed me. Stay away from me. Got it. He quickly kissed my forehead and stepped back 20 centimeters, smiling in a way that begged for a beating. That's compensation. Feeling guilty, I took the initiative to find Mike afterward. It's really over between us. I hope you don't bother me or those around me anymore. His current state was hard to describe, as if he'd aged 10 years overnight. So you're still blaming me? No, I tried hard to explain. What I mean is we're strangers now. So I don't love you and I don't blame you. I just want you to stay away from my life. Mike's expression remained stubborn and frightening, and I had to speak more sternly. Mr. Mike, if you continue to harass me or my family, I will call the police. Don't make me hate you, Mike. After a long pause, he finally said softly, All right. Outside the coffee shop, Richard was already waving, signaling that it was time to go home. So I said goodbye to Mike and walked towards Richard. These days, because Richard's right hand was injured and he couldn't drive, I took the wheel. He sat in the passenger seat, and his good left hand occasionally caused trouble, forcing me to threaten him. Move again and I'll get a driver. I used to have a driver, but Richard had fired him. Richard then let go and half-joking, half-serious said, Jasmine, I'm really glad you ran to me first that day. During our engagement he hadn't said, I'm glad you're marrying me. But now, over such a small thing, he was thrilled. I chose to ignore his petty remarks. That night, he guilt-tripped me into staying at his place to cook. When he kissed me breathless, he asked again, Jasmine, why did you run to me first? I stayed silent. He kissed me again. After we got married, he asked the same question on various intimate nights. I finally gave him an answer on our first anniversary. There's no choice involved. There's no order. You are the only answer. Even when emotional function is compromised, my instincts gave me the answer at that moment. No other options. You are the only answer.